And if we then turn to page 491, we find the policy which was adopted. And would it be correct to say that this policy that we're going to look at now, it's over this page and the next page, this really is the foundation of the ANC's deployment policy to this day?
I would say yes and no, because we should avoid mixing ANC work and government work. Because if we do that, we're going to cause confusion. The ANC as a party and as an organization has a responsibility to prepare itself to have capacity to govern. Okay. So this policy talks to the ANC internal process of preparing its people to have capacity to govern.
Yes, but the question is whether this policy, as adopted at this conference, really still is the bedrock of the ANC's own deployment policies to this day.
And what about this effort to locate a deployment to cadre? I'm worried about that. The ANC prepares its cadres. Okay. Sends me to school. I come back, it says it's not enough, go back. I go back to school. That is an internal ANC process. So that if I'm given a responsibility, I must have acquired the competence to execute.
Well, let me ask the question this way. I'm not sure that the two of you are on the same page. You remember you said earlier on the ANC has a deployment policy.
Yes.
And as I understood you, you said that deployment policy was started by the ANC some years ago. I can't remember what year you indicated. And you said at every conference that policy is revised. Is that correct? Or is revisited? The
deployment committee gets divided in the NWC, in the NEC, yes, on an ongoing basis.
Yes, okay. Now, Mr. Freund's question is whether this document that we're looking at, which includes at page 100.491, a section that says cadre policy.
Yes.
He's asking whether this document contains still the foundation of the ANC's cadre policy that has evolved over the years.
Cadre policy is about development of individual cadre of the ANC.
Oh, okay. So you say cadre policy is not necessarily deployment policy.
It's not deployment policy.
Yes.
It's preparation of cadres,
yes,
to be ready. If you do well and comply with the prescriptions of the cadre policy, you will be ready for deployment, okay, because you will have acquired the skill.
Okay, okay. I hope that has clarified, Mr.
Well, cadre policy, the conference notes the importance for the process of transformation and the mass character of the ANC of having, and these are the words I focus on, of having an army of conscious, committed, and properly deployed cadres. That is fundamental policy. That was then fundamental policy of the ANC. And the question I want to ask is, does that remain fundamental policy of the ANC?
Yes, it remains fundamental.
And if we look at the fourth bullet point, this is under conference notes, the critical role of political leadership in the transition period, and the need to deploy cadres to various organs of the state, including the public service and to other centers of power in society. That remains the position of the African National Congress to this day. Am I right?
Yes, yes, it remains.
So it wouldn't be correct to say that cadre policy is purely about training and and enhancing the skills and the political education of cadres, because although that's correct, there's a second part to it. And the second part to it is the policy of deploying those cadres, correct?
The cadre policy prepares people
for deployment.
For deployment. Yes. It's like, even if you call it or you don't call it deployment, a policy, you have kids, you send them to school, you are preparing them for bigger responsibilities in society. The ANC take that responsibility on its cadres. That's why it is not an exception in the ANC to send an old person sent back to school. And you go and study and come back, because there is an ongoing process of preparing people to take bigger responsibility. And therefore, deployment, yes.